It's July 10th, and it's time to talk about business and security this week because there's a lot of business and security happening. Actually, a lot of companies, they don't, in America, we do the whole like June 30th to July 1 fiscal year. So a lot of companies, just got their fiscal year stuff in. So there actually is a lot of business news this summer, in a summer where basically everybody's otherwise already checked out.
Not a ton of stories in the hardware section. That was very meager. We also have a couple of collapse stories. I think I accidentally put an old Microsoft layout story a couple of weeks ago, but this one is real. I double checked.
Microsoft lays off employees in a new round of cuts. Yeah. So the last time I was here, not last week, the week before, Microsoft was laying off in India. This round of cuts, I think, lines up with, the end of a financial reporting period. So, woo.
Last episode, we talked about the whole right to repair, people being locked out of major car manufacturers now. But John Deere really wrote the book when it came to that. They've gotten away with it. And a lot of their defenses when they get called out on stuff like that is like, we're the heartland of America. We support farmers and, it's just good people, which makes this a little more of a sting.
John Deere announces mass layoffs in Midwest amid production shift to Mexico. They're going to get rid of a couple of hundred people, over 600 staff at two different plants, one in Illinois and one in Ohio. I can't is this in a world where, it's like manufacturing needs to come back to America? If these folks are skilled machine operators or like skilled in manufacturing, I can't help but think that's a business opportunity because there is opportunity for skilled manufacturing for things like, I know how to build something to within, 1/10,000th. There's opportunity for you out there, I promise.
But try to start a tractor company. See how fast the regulators shut you down.
Yeah.
Because John Deere has created this world. They've written these laws.
Yeah.
And they know they can get away with this.
We don't want the people in America to know our secrets so that we can lock them out. Because I think a lot of the people that were working for John Deere in America were unhappy about the right to repair stuff going down the way that it was. Because it's like, wait a minute, John Deere, no, stop doing that. That is against American ideals. Whereas the people in Mexico are like, yay, I have a job.
But here's the crazy thing about it. In America, we have some of the best labor practices compared to a lot of the countries in the world. Maybe not Europe, but some of the other places. And like the whole TSMC and the semiconductors coming over here and just being like, we can't work with these people.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that TSMC is like Germany is okay, but America is hard because hard work is basically illegal in Germany.
And so it's interesting when in the home country, Samsung is having problems. Now, we learned previously that they were going to do a one-day strike where they all took sick leave, which is hilarious. Like, they're so well behaved. It didn't work.
Unionized workers at Samsung Electronics to stage a full-scale strike. So they just want a one vacation day? Is that's got to be a mistranslation,
I read
right?
that and I was like, really? One vacation day. And they want to get paid for all of their overtime, which apparently they're not getting it. So it'd be interesting if that shows any impact on Samsung's output.
So Samsung controls Korea's government like what? Big Oil controls ours? I don't know.
I don't think Big Oil's in the driver's seat anymore. They're kind of being shunned.
Is it Big Tech? I don't think it's Big Tech either.
They've definitely got a seat.
Big Tech hasn't learned how to drive. They might be in the passenger seat.
There is one industry that we probably shouldn't even mention being demonetized, but they are really in control of the media and the government. Starts with a P. And here, I want you to go back and look at some headlines from, 2020, 2021, where we were guaranteed this just is a fantasy. You're insane if you think this is happening. You're sowing disinformation and you should be silenced. And now look at this headline.
Nearly half of U.S. firms are using AI, and they say that their goal is to cut staffing costs. Huh.
I would say that's their goal and that they've achieved it in many instances. But I'm sure it's not enough. I'm sure there'll be more.
What was one of the executives, I think it was on the OpenAI side or one of the AI company sides, like, well, we're just replacing jobs that probably shouldn't have been there to begin with.
We talked about that last week, yeah.
That's wild.
Although we did immediately identify that there was one company that was writing like SEO spam, and they all got replaced, and it was like, well, She was right in that case. And too bad Krista isn't here because Patagonia, as I understand it, is like her kind of stuff, right? Outdoorsy, camping gear.
I can't tell you.
Run by hippies, or should we say previously run by hippies, then it got really successful.
Patagonia gave 90 staff a choice: relocate across the U.S. or leave the company. They've got 3 days to decide. So Patagonia has like 7 or 8 locations, and the deal was relocate there, or we're gonna have to lay you off.
Amazingly, these were remote workers, but they want them within 60 miles of a hub, or you can't work for them.
That's just so they can come in every now and then?
I suppose. And Amazon, obviously, a lot of problems with the warehouses, a lot of bad things happening there. But when we report on it, we're always talking about America. But America is not the only place that has Amazon warehouses.
Amazon warehouses, corporate giant accused of labor law violations. Yeah, water is wet. Technically, I guess technically that's not true, but whatever.
Oh my God, this font. It was India, right?
Yeah, there's a lot here.
Yeah. Baslambi. And one of the big things that came out of this story, a lot of the headlines ran with, this one didn't, this is a paywall alternative, is menstruation.
Yeah.
You get less than a minute to swap out your stuff to prevent that, but you get no consideration in terms of standing for 10 hours, or if you have cramping or anything like that, doesn't matter. You're still expected to do exactly the same as everybody else. And a lot of the ladies not loving that. And also you saw the picture there of them sleeping in the locker room because there's no accommodations for you to rest. Rest?
We thought the labor violations in America were bad. This is much worse. Although, is Amazon going to show this to the American workers and say, see?
Well, no, because they're like, we just need those till we get the robots. Just let them have their dream.
They are deploying robots at a breakneck pace. I saw another article this week that they've crossed the 100,000 mark for robots, like big robots.
And as we go into the AI data center world where all of a sudden we really didn't need extreme performance, at least not outside the data center. But now with AI, every computer needs extreme performance, right? What was your opinion on the Intel optical bridge?
It's long overdue. We needed optical interconnects like 10 years ago.
So you think that's going to help? It's a real thing?
I think that optical interconnects are probably going to help with everything.
Well, now they're also looking at a way to beef up your existing graphics card.
New technology enables GPUs to use PCIe-attached memory for extended capacity. CXL. I pointed this out months ago to people inside of various companies and said, hey, this is a thing. We saw Phison. We saw Phison doing stuff with SSDs, and their SSDs is like extended GPU memory. NVIDIA, I don't think, is real enthused about that because it's like I could buy 2 GPUs and then a bunch of cheap memory, and then the 2 GPUs can deal with the memory space like I would normally have to have 8 GPUs. So I don't think NVIDIA is like super on board for that, and NVIDIA is spending so much money that all of these companies are getting so much money from NVIDIA that I think any kind of solution like that is probably going to be slow walked, which is maybe something the FTC could check into.
But if AMD could do it, if NVIDIA won't, and AMD will,
yeah,
that could be an opportunity.
That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is because AMD or NVIDIA has this amazing mindshare moat, but like when you're using OpenAI or ChatGPT, do you really care? You don't even know what it's running on, and if you did, would it change how you use the product? And so if AMD can throw a bunch of GPUs at it, and you got a bunch of inexpensive memory that's a little further away and a little slower, then suddenly AMD has a competitive advantage because no one cares about what brand of GPU is doing the compute because of the way the product is used, and the product is cheaper to build and implement.
Then NVIDIA would definitely have to do it.
NVIDIA would notice. NVIDIA remembers that.
And like you say, we're entering into a phase, as dark as it is, where we don't know what hardware we're using because it's all just out there in the cloud. And a lot of stuff is shifting away from consumer performance into data center performance. It doesn't matter how many hoops you have to jump through to get these speeds because you're going to have a controlled environment.
Japan achieves a staggering 402 terabits per second data rate with commercial optical fiber. The record-breaking performance tapped into unused wavelength bands. So this, once again, we need fiber everywhere. Fiber is the truly 100-year infrastructure. This worked just fine on existing commercial fiber. 31 miles. They were able to go 31 miles with this, no problem. You do have to have special repeaters still. So we're talking an electronic swap, but you're not deploying new infrastructure, which is fantastic.
Fiber optic is the technology of the future, the data center, AI, maybe optical interchanges in your hardware. But you know what's not the technology of the future?
The Apple Vision Pro is going to get Apple Intelligence and go deeper in-store demos. People really, it's like, oh, you don't understand how much you need the Apple headset.
So one of the things they're going to do here, let's make a prediction. One of the things they're going to do is they're going to let you sign in with your Apple account so that you can look at your videos and your photos in in-store demos. What's obviously going to happen there?
Things are going to end up somewhere they're not supposed to be.
Your nudes. The next person's going to put on that headset, and there they're going to be.
God, can you imagine trusting Apple with nudes? That's just crazy.
A lot of people do it. And in our future, where everything will be surveilled, we've been paying attention to the fact that our cars have radios in them, and they broadcast everything that we do. But now that we're onto that, maybe they have another way of safeguard, as it were. If we were to tear those out of our cars, they're still going to be spying.
First look, America's smartest highway. And if you read the article, it's literally just surveillance. It's like, oh, it could do all these things in the future. But for now, it's just going to count the number of cars, identify the license plates, and let us know immediately if a car stops.
So all those license plate readers that are scattered around the world, they're just going to be on all the roads going forward.
They talk about how we've got a mesh, and we can have one processing light post and then a bunch of camera light posts, and the camera light posts all talk to the processing light post, and we don't have to run any more infrastructure. It's like, this sounds like a surveillance apparatus. This doesn't sound like you're trying to build a smart highway.
I mean, it's smart, but the things that it's smart about are maybe not what the drivers care about. And boy, we have a block here, a Microsoft block, where it's just astonishing. They are doubling down.
The sentiment against Microsoft is changing with the sea of articles. The headline is, Microsoft has gone too far. Including a Game Pass ad in the Settings app ushers in a whole new age of ridiculous over-advertising. More ads in Windows 11.
They don't have a picture of it.
They will in the Start menu one.
But yeah, they've already got it on the home screen or the unlock screen. So now they're putting it everywhere. I'm going to rearrange these slightly. But yes, we do have a picture of this one.
New Windows 11 Start menu annoyingly hides often used actions. Yep.
So let's get the better picture down here. They're making your account, which is trying to tell you, it's like, hey, you could be a part of Game Pass and OneDrive and Copilot. And look at all these different cool accounts that you could have, and trying to upsell you. And in order to do that, they had to get rid of some things in the Start menu.
Like switching users or logging out or locking the PC. That's now 2 clicks.
Useless features, really.
Yeah. It's wild to me that somebody inside Microsoft really thinks that aggressively insisting on having a cloud account and then changing your preferences for things like, we're going to use OneDrive for backups. It's like, you didn't ask. You just started doing it. Like, why would people freak out about that?
And why would people freak out about this? I mean, this is not like it's something that you use every day and just want basic information, right? You would love to have some ads in this.
Microsoft's weather app now displays more ads because somebody's line on a dashboard had to go up.
I like how it's more. So you got them right there. I like how they have this nice blue theme and everything fits into it, and then there's just big red garish ad over here. Every page. They even got one down here on the map.
You know, if they remake The Matrix today, they're going to probably the plausible way to explain it is all the ads on all the websites that follow you around or just follow the white rabbit. It's just like, am I the only one seeing this ad? Turns out, yes, Neo. That is correct.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Like, hijack the ad system to red pill the populace. That's a good story. And Epic Games and Apple, it'll never be over. They will be at war forever.
Epic Games says Apple is stalling the launch of its game store in Europe. This is a Reuters article, but Tim Sweeney also put out a series of tweets for like the ridiculous rejections that Apple has offered, and it does seem utterly ridiculous, just insane. Like, this button is too similar to the Apple button. We think that they would get confused about the Apple App Store experience versus the Epic App Store experience. It's just like, oh my God.
And he pointed out some other apps that use the same button, and the fact that he was like, we just use this basic design philosophy or pack or whatever to create these buttons. Like, this is not anything groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It's a button.
Apple's literally saying, we just want it to be more janky. You need to make it more janky. Go copy the Microsoft store. It should be as janky as that.
Maybe that's why Microsoft is doing it, so they don't infringe on Apple's visual patents. It's like, no, put an ad in it. No one does that.
Also, if you're Microsoft, wouldn't you be on top of trying to get the Windows App Store on Apple devices in Europe as well? Like, why wouldn't you have a whole business unit dedicated to working on that?
Well, you might be afraid that if people could run your apps on the other competitor, for the longest time they didn't let them do that, right?
I mean, line's going to go up if people on Apple want Bing.
Microsoft line is going up. They're not too worried about the operating system at this point. Obviously, right? No one's looking to make that a better experience.
The operating system is going to be the little sound that Siri makes when she responds to you, and that's just the whole thing. It's like you just talk to it. It's like, this is what I want to work on. It's like, okay, there you go. You don't need icons. You don't need a start menu. You don't need anything.
And it'll all be AI. But AI needs two things. It needs an unlimited amount of power, and it needs an unlimited amount of data to train on. How can we stop it?
Cloudflare rolls out a feature for blocking AI companies' web scrapers. Basically, when somebody's coming to harvest all your data, Cloudflare looks at it and says, this looks like a bot harvesting your data, and it'll block it from your website.
And when you say look at it, you mean another AI. It's always another AI to introduce to fix AI.
It's just like the spam wars on Usenet.
And Netflix went to ads, and everybody was like, oh, ads, that's terrible. That Netflix, the whole point is not having ads. And yet the consumers flocked to it because they're broke and they have no money and they're desperate for distraction. And Netflix said, oh, line goes up. Let's just continue this trend.
Netflix is starting to phase out its cheapest ad-free plan. Your $11.99 Netflix subscription is disappearing. You can get a cheaper one with ads, or it'll be $22.99 for the 4K no ad version.
That's insane.
Yeah. I'm afraid the magic hard drive has made a return.
As if it would have ever left anywhere.
Well, I mean, think about it. If you budget, say, $30 a month for media, and then you just have a watch bot on eBay and Amazon to look for deals, you can buy a ton of DVD box sets for nothing.
If you go further than that and actually get out of the house and go to like a thrift store.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although those days are going to come to an end, right? Because who's creating physical media for new stuff?
That's what I worry about with the whole first sale doctrine. Like, there should be a path to where I'm buying the right to have media. I'm not interested in buying something 8 times. I want to buy it and own it.
Well, that's a problem because every big tech company's business model is based on you buying something 8 times.
We almost got a good precedent from Apple with them selling unencrypted MP3 files, because like you can take ownership of those and you bought it. You didn't rent those.
Amazon did that too, but it's gone now, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunate. Well, I think the GameStop stock already crashed again, right?
Yep.
I've not been keeping up with it. This one I think may be withdrawn because it's a whole thing where if you're suing somebody and the government also wants to come after them criminally, you definitely want to wait till after that's over, right?
Yeah.
I think that might be what's driving this.
Roy and Kitty lawsuit over GameStop is withdrawn for now, the Reuters headline. And then everything else is just speculation and fluff. There's really not a lot of interesting stuff here. This is someone who really likes the GameStop stock and has tweeted some things, but I think the stuff that they've tweeted has been just so circumspect and ambiguous that this lawsuit's insane.
See, I disagree. I think that's clear pump and dump.
Yeah.
No one likes the GameStop stock. It cannot exist in the near future. We're talking about getting rid of physical media, right?
Yeah.
Why does GameStop need to exist?
What if GameStop turns into the touchstone for like a sort of American labor revolution where people say, I've had enough of this crap. I want to own my media again. I want a first sale doctrine of, if I rent this thing on Prime Video, I can save a copy to my hard drive and there's nothing you can do about it. And what if GameStop is the torch that ignites that fire in people's hearts?
I would say that torch would be quickly extinguished by lawsuits.
I was going to say snipers, but
And cable companies are another business that probably shouldn't even exist right now, right? Where will they be in 10 years? Well, they've definitely noticed.
bleeding subscribers, cable companies force their way onto streaming. Cable companies is one of the few remaining ways where I can transcode digital stuff from something onto something that I can keep forever, sadly. They usually adulterate the content, though, which is annoying and stupid.
So they point out a particular in Now TV Latino from, was it Comcast? Yeah. So Comcast has this new streaming thing, but in every way they make it worse than your usual streaming stuff. And it's geo-fenced as well. You have to be in a Comcast territory to get it. But it shows that they are somewhat trying to ride the wave, just making it like their old garbage.
They're forcing users to comply with their own red tape, not realizing that it was strangling their business all along. Aha, the delightful irony.
Now, we unfortunately use Google Docs to organize our news stories every week. It's terrible. It's not as bad as some of the stuff we were previously using. And I saw this and I was like, I'm going to try it. And I actually registered and I set it up, but it doesn't seem like you can share them without an account. It seems like everybody has to have an account. So I gave up on it, but I wish there was a better solution.
Proton just launched a privacy-focused alternative to Google Docs. This is good in theory. You should be aware of the time the U.S. government forced LavaBit to decrypt their stuff, however.
I'm not too worried if they decrypt our news article lists. There's no commentary in there.
It is nice to be sure that none of that is going to be used for, incidental purposes like training an AI or whatever the use du jour tomorrow is.
Now, this one I feel like is almost a perfect recreation of the fall of Tumblr. Don't you think so?
Yeah. Etsy adult toy ban has sparked seller outrage. This is the BBC headline on that. So Etsy is no longer going to permit you to sell those things if you're into those things, which apparently was a lot of traffic for some Etsy sellers.
One of the things you're not allowed to sell is clothing, which exposes body parts, including the cleft between the buttocks. I didn't know we were doing butt cleavage these days. And moving on to the security section, this was certainly the security story of the week, perhaps of the year.
Over 14 million servers may be vulnerable to the OpenSSH's regression RCE flaw. Here's what you need to do. So yes, OpenSSH, remote code execution, don't have to be root, don't have to really know anything. This is as bad as it gets, folks. So make sure that your OpenSSH version is either not vulnerable or updated.
And more supply chain terror, which once again is very hard to diagnose, and you're going to have to go root through all of the supply chain of your projects.
CocoaPods, if that sounds vaguely familiar and you use it on your projects, CocoaPods vulnerabilities could hit Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, TikTok, Snap, and more because, they changed the way their infrastructure works, and they were expecting developers to adopt their old packages on the new platform. Not all developers did that, and then some malicious developers adopted packages that have been used by a lot of people, and then now those are distributing malicious code. Not a great situation all around.
And I really missed an obvious sort here. How often do you get two stories about this topic together? Somehow I fail.
Lawsuit claims Microsoft tracked adult item shoppers with recording in real-time software. So this is Microsoft's Clarity tracking analytics software. Some user noticed that it was installed on some adult websites and freaked out. And so now they have outed themselves in a lawsuit, and they're suing Microsoft to say, hey, wait a minute, your privacy thing says you don't do this, and the analytics software literally does this.
And this MUID here identifies your particular machine. So anywhere else you've gone on the web, like your Microsoft account, they now know your identity, and they know what you're buying. They pointed out that some of the things you buy might also reveal your sexual orientation or your gender. So, not cool. that Microsoft now has that information. It's definitely going into your ad profile, if it wasn't already there. And hitting the clubs. How often do we hit the clubs? It's like every week. Just drinking and partying. We're so much fun, right?
People in San Francisco are mad that a new app lets you spy on bars to see how busy they are. Well, people in San Francisco must not be very fast because Google Maps has done that for like the last 5 years. You could look up a business on Google Maps and get a little graph and it would say busier than usual, not as busy as usual.
Well, this does take it up a notch in that you can watch live cameras.
Yeah.
So some people are saying this is great because I can look at a bar and see if things are happening there or not. Do I want to be part of that crowd? But I can also look at a bar and say, oh, there's Jeff, and he's drunk again, and he was at an AA meeting earlier this week.
Does have flash mobs gone out of style? Because you're going to have accidental flash mobs. There's going to be a small little bar, and it's like, oh, that looks like amazing things are happening there, and then all of a sudden, 7,000 people show up at a 200-person bar, and it's like, ooh.
Flash mobs are still a thing, but it's usually organized retail theft.
Especially when we're talking about California. Buzzing.
And we have our usual stories in the security section, which are just more data breaches.
Prudential Financial now says 2.5 million are impacted by a data breach. This also sets the stage like Prudential, like financial. It is very easy. We don't have the necessary security to manage your accounts online, two-factor, et cetera, et cetera. With the theft of this information, the people that have accounts at Prudential are even more at risk because now we're at a point in time where there's been so many thefts of individual data from healthcare, financial organizations, et cetera, that it's going to be very easy to fake your identity and steal a lot of money from you.
Or to fake that you're Prudential and you're reaching out, because I know all of your security questions and like how to convince you that I'm Prudential. And a lot of people are going to fall for that. Don't trust anybody on your telephone.
You just need to tell me what the code is on your little fob. Like, I know all the stuff. I just need the code on the fob. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, here you go. Don't do that.
And they can call you right after you try to log in.
Yeah.
Because they might have that tapped as well. We've seen that. And here's one. There's a blast from the past. But no one knew. And it begs an important question. When is a hack, right? If you get hacked and they don't get anything that the users have, do you still need to tell somebody? I would say yes.
Yeah. A hacker stole OpenAI secrets, raising fears that China could too. So the New York Times article here says somebody broke into OpenAI's internal infrastructure, not the user stuff, but like internal chats, communication. They may have information on how OpenAI is building its stuff or how it's put together, which could unlock some how-to stuff for China. I think the reality is that like these are just large language models. The genie's out of the bottle on how large language models work. OpenAI seems like they're doubling, tripling down on OpenAI, and they're going multi-agent, which is kind of the obvious thing. Now, I might be wrong in 2 or 3 years if OpenAI comes up with something really innovative that is another different technology. But if it's iterating on the technology we've already seen, I personally don't see the risk as very real. And if OpenAI has not said, oh, they might have seen some bleeding edge technologies, we had cold fusion in there, then that's a different story. But I haven't seen anything like that.
But they did get hacked.
Yeah,
and the rules say you got to tell people when you get hacked.
That would be nice.
Now let's go back. Was it? I guess it was the previous episode. The Swiss war on cash. What could go wrong? Well, it's actually quite obvious.
Everything frozen. Ransomware locks credit union users out of bank accounts. Think about this if you're a Canadian and you're sleepwalking into a cashless society. The bank can and will make terrible mistakes. And also because the criminals are literally not just the criminals in our country, but also the criminals on the whole world. The ones that are on the internet are after your retirement fund. They're after your bank account. They're after your identity. We are unprepared. The dumbest people you know are the ones that are running the security at these financial institutions. We are completely unprepared.
And even if you use the more advanced products, most people are getting SMS phished, and you say, hey, I'm better than that. I'm using authenticator apps. But you still have to trust somebody.
Twilio.
I think it's Twilio.
Says hackers identified cell phone numbers of two-factor app users of Authy. So Twilio, if you use Authy, 33 million phone numbers compromised. Yeah.
To be fair, at this point, who doesn't think that their phone number is compromised?
Yeah. It's still the case a lot of the time, too, that if you don't have a PIN on your voicemail, if you call your voicemail from another number spoofing as your own number, it lets you into your voicemail. Like, that's still a thing in 2024. Like that, a lot of cell phone companies still work that way. And so it doesn't ask you for a PIN because you're calling from your own number. Except it's trivial to not call from your own number and actually call from a fake number that looks like your own number.
Now, if you follow the news out of China, like last year, going into this year, there was a lot of stories, heartbreaking stories, where people were chasing yields in savings accounts. And the banks were like, yeah, this is a government-backed saving account. Sure it is. It wasn't. And it was like that South Park thing where it was like, oh, it's gone. It's all gone. And guess what? This wasn't a real financial product, so you get nothing. And the people were,
unhappy.
They were taking some drastic steps. It had ruined some lives. But that would never happen here.
How thousands of Americans got caught in fintech's false promise and lost access to bank accounts. Or their money was just straight up stolen. They went with the soft headline here, CNBC, but there were definitely some institutional levels of fraud going on, I think.
So there are FDIC covered accounts somewhere here because these fintech companies they don't become banks, they partner with banks. Kind of like Apple and Goldman Sachs. We saw that happen. But then there's actually more than one company in this chain, and when one of them goes bad, the money just gets locked up. And it's still technically yours, but there's going to be lawsuits and bankruptcies, and during that time, you don't get your money.
100,000 people with over 200 million in assets are affected by this. That's a lot of people.
And they're just screwed. They can't really do anything about it.
Some bank somewhere is making money off of the interest you should be earning, which is definitely not by design.
And all of these companies put the FDIC logo on their apps because technically, somewhere down the line, the FDIC was covering the accounts. The money is presumably still there. But if you can't have it, if I tell you I'm going to give you $20 million, but you can't spend any of it.
This is Exhibit B for a cashless society.
B? I think we're up to like H at this point.
I mean, not that you have to, I don't think you should keep your assets in cash, but there's definitely...
You should have a little cash.
You should have a little cash, but also you should have a way of escalating dramatically, and this does not give you that.
You should have a little cash, and you should pretend like you don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't want anybody knowing that you have a little cash.
Yeah.
And this one is almost a throwaway at this point. I mean, when are we going to see the end of this?
The Register's headline is Microsoft tells yet more customers their email have been stolen. So this is not a new hack. This is actually the hack that we reported on a long time ago where Microsoft insisted only government customers were affected because that one guy noticed some weird stuff in the logs. And other, like regular business customers that aren't paying extra, we don't even log the kind of stuff that we would have had to been logging in order to track this kind of stuff. So this is more from this. They're doing more and deeper audits because that was such a severe compromise. And it turns out that some large corporate customers may have lost some very private emails as well.
And finally, if you think that only the common folk get hit by these breaches and all these ransomwares and stuff like that, think again. Because the pinnacle of human existence has also fallen to it.
Ticketmaster breaches. Shiny hunters leak 440,000 Taylor Swift Eras Tour ticket data. So they've got $32 billion worth of transaction logs from 193 million ticket barcodes.
And they've got the barcodes themselves, which there are no physical tickets anymore, just like the cashless society, right? So those are the tickets. They have them.
They're going to unleash havoc. Now, some of this is these are all concluded transactions, obviously. I think some of the tour data is past, but some of it's also future.
Oh, yeah, there were some big dates coming up. I can't remember. I think she's in Europe at this point, right?
Yeah.
This is the longest world tour in history. I feel like we've been talking about this for 2 years.
It'd be a great way to retire.
I think she's hit that number already.
Yeah, isn't Weird Al like 70 or 80 and he's still touring? I saw him when he was up there in age, and I remember finding out his age and being surprised that he could still move like that on stage.
He looks young for his age.
Well, it's got to be the stage show because it's a lot of cardio.
I imagine he was probably responsible with his money, don't you think?
Yeah.
He's probably doing quite well. How much do you think the residuals, like how much play are those songs still getting played?
It's probably a lot.
You think?
I'd be surprised if it's not.
I've never looked at the Spotify numbers, have you? Well,
I think the one mistake that he made was committing to 10 albums up front because it was just like, if you're a runaway success, we'll own you for 10 albums. He should have done like 2.
he seemed like to have a lot of output, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, rip Taylor. Poor girl.
We'll see you Friday.
She might survive.